Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another hot take of Here Now with Matthew. I, of course, am Matthew, as always. And if you're watching this around or shortly after the time I'm recording it, well, you know what's going on. If you are sometime in the future and all this madness has passed, just for the record, today is March 22nd, 2020, and I am currently in Tennessee. Hopefully, that will give you enough context to kind of figure out exactly what is going on right now for the world. Like this, and that's right where I like to start. Is to me, this is a global thing. This is not this is not something that can be blamed on anyone else. This is not something that can be shifted off and said, oh, that's and say, oh, that's their problem to deal with. This is something that, for the first time in quite a while, we have no choice but to face collectively. And so far, to me, anyways, it seems like we're doing a pretty shit job of it. Um, and that's kind of what I feel drawn to talk about is, what is it that is driving these behaviors? What is it that underlies greed and tribalism and self-centeredness and all of these behaviors in us. And I say us because I'm not excluded from this. I have these behaviors. I do this stuff occasionally, that has led to this current global, people are calling it a crisis. I don't particularly feel that way. To me, this is an opportunity, like this current global opportunity. Um, and so, I come back to this question of what is the underlying source of these behaviors, and I have had a lot of I've led a pretty unique life compared to most other people that I've met. I have been very fortunate to have lived with some very wise and experienced people and teachers. And through what I've learned working with them, had the opportunity to work with others in similar ways. And so, and I apologize because this is where I kind of struggle with this because I don't actually know how to tell you what it is I do. Because I don't really do anything except for be present. And from that presence, from that place of awareness, from that place of listening without an agenda, I let the thing that is higher than me speak. Or at least I do my best to allow that thing to speak through me. And how that happens is not that complicated. It's actually incredibly simple. It's very much just a becoming silent and being aware. But it took me a long time to understand what that experience is actually like. And so that has become my practice. And from that place, I have met and worked with a number of people who have suffered extreme trauma, and watched them find their own inner peace. Like watch them come to this place of their own deeper awareness, and then go out into the world and do the same thing that I have been fortunate enough to experience. Um, and there seems to be a common theme in all this. Like in all my experiences in working through my own stuff, and working through my own traumas, and in guiding others through theirs, the common theme has been fear. You know, it all comes down to what is it that I or the other person believes that is giving rise to fear. And then that fear, because it is unacknowledged by myself or that person, then evolves into anger. And if that anger is still unacknowledged and not dealt with, that anger then becomes all of these behaviors that have led to this current opportunity. And, you know, greed, hatred, racism, tribalism, hoarding, nepotism, cronyism, you name it, all the isms, all most of the isms. Um, and how that actually happens is a unique process for every person. So I don't know that I can actually share how you can find out how that happened in you without, just being present with you, and just letting that higher than me thing speak. But I can share and have shared how it has happened with me. And in sharing that, maybe you can find what has happened in your journey and work backwards from wherever you're at now, whether that be angry at the establishment for all their seeming incompetence, or, you know, scared of, or, well, or angry at a different religion because of reasons, you know, whatever it is. So whenever I recognize that I'm angry, at this point in my journey, now the very first question that comes up is, okay, what am I scared of? Because if I can find the fear, if I can identify what I'm scared of, and then recognize the lie from which the fear was created, everything else falls away. The anger's gone, the hatred's gone, the passive aggressive behavior is gone. Whatever it is that's happening, it's gone. It drops back into compassion. And the big fear for me in these past few days has been, actually, no, let me start first with what got me really angry. Because that's, that's the journey, right? So, watching Trump and watching my parents buy into all of the false promises and outright lies that he has been telling. Yeah, that up until today, that still got to me. And it got to the point where my mom and I actually got in some pretty heated exchanges, even yelling at each other about it because I just was absolutely flabbergasted that she could be so brainwashed. Like that was how I saw it. Was she was brainwashed, and maybe in a sense she kind of is, but this is about me, not her. So, and because I was so angry, I was acting out and I was, like demeaning her in a lot of ways. And I got called out on it several times, once by myself, once by a very, very good friend of mine, and once by my dad. And, I had already been looking at it when my friend, when I brought up my friend and we talked about it. And I realized I was still trying to save her from herself. I realized that I was scared that she was going to simply continue perpetuating her own suffering for the rest of her life, and she was never actually going to be happy. Like she would just never have that experience for herself, not really. And so that was the fear. Like that was, and I was doing my best to convince her from that fear that she was blind and basically, creating this whole realm of her own suffering. And that was one of the fears. And the other fear was facing my own heartbreak. Like, I know this is kind of, this may be kind of a stretch, but often I find it's easier to get angry than it is to have compassion, because in having compassion for one person, I ultimately fall into compassion for the entire world, and my heart breaks because of all the pain that I see there. And I was scared to face that pain. I was scared to let myself feel that heartbreak. And then we come to the lie. Like, so the anger, angry at Trump for perpetuating lies that my parents believed, that created, or that continue to create, their own personal hells. The fear that I wouldn't be able to handle the pain of heartbreak from facing my own suffering and the suffering of the rest of the world. and the fear that I would not be able to save my mom from her own suffering. And there's several lies in all of that that give rise to all those fears. So one of them is that people need to be saved. Um, pain, or that pain is undesirable. That's another way of looking at it too, right? When in reality, often the opposite can be true, that it's pain that is the teacher. It's the pain that serves as a warning that something is out of balance, that something is out of harmony, that something isn't working. And that pain, if we pay attention to it, there can be a lesson there. There can be something we can learn about ourselves and thus become more compassionate and more loving. So that was one lie. And that's actually kind of the biggest. That's the biggest one. Like letting go of that really dropped me into dropped me into compassion for not just my mom, but for Trump and Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul and all of the leaders who are in positions of leadership, or all the leaders who are in a position of leadership. Yeah, well, this is a hot take. Because they are on their own journey. They are no more or less a product of their society and their parents and their collective history than I am. And I am learning so much from the unique situation that I am in. And to deny them that opportunity to learn from their unique situation feels like a disservice to the world at large and to the universe as a whole. So, being able to actually watch Trump's press conference for the first time today and not get angry was kind of a cool thing. And this has shifted my conversations that I am inviting people into in every aspect of my life. Here, Twitter, my day to day, and it has shifted me from seeing this as a global crisis to a global opportunity. This is a chance for us as a whole to let go of many, if not all, of our fears that have created these behaviors, to identify the lies, let go of the fear, and let the anger dissolve. And I feel like there's some really basic assumptions that have been driving our world that simply no longer work. The one that's really present for me right now is the assumption that you have to work in order to receive resources. That you have to work for something that a group with enough resources to hand out resources deems meaningful. even if that work doesn't feel meaningful to you. It's that attitude that I feel like has led to a lot of the homelessness that we see in this country and around the world. And in this particular situation, it is the homeless that will probably suffer the most. This has brought into very stark relief, and I'm starting to see this online. It's not just me saying this anymore. I'm starting to see more and more people recognize this. This has brought into stark relief a reality that we are only as strong as the weakest of us. It is showing the interconnectedness of humanity. And in a situation like this pandemic, if we do not step up and actually care for those who have been left behind by our society, then not only will they suffer and die, but they will also serve as a reservoir for this virus. And we will see continuous waves of reinfection spring up all over the world through the homeless community, because they have no access to shelter, to medical care, to any of the basic necessities that are required in a global pandemic. And so it's that reality that has been made so apparent to me that is the opportunity. That is the lesson that we can learn from this. Maybe not the lesson, but a lesson, because there are lots of lessons that we can learn from this. But right now, the one that's most present is we are only as strong as the weakest of us. And this attitude of entitlement that you have to work for what you earn does not serve humanity in a global pandemic. It is sorry, the words aren't quite there right now. We can do better. We can do better. And if we want to get through this, we will have to do better. I think I've rambled enough for one night. I know this isn't my usual kind of talking point, but the times they are changing. So if you've stuck with me and learned something from this, thank you. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Aloha.